My dad passed away years ago. I think he actually had COVID about a month before COVID came out. He had a liver transplant, and the transplant didn't go well. So it was in and out of the hospital every week. And we were just kind of living in and out of the hospital together. And I'd go to the office and then come back at night and back and forth. That was kind of like another one of those moments of like, I'm here just to take care of everyone. And I've kind of always been that with my family that needs to kind of help be the support function. And for whatever reason, I kind of thrive in that mode. And that's how I operate the best.
In this episode, we sit down with Todd Parks. Todd walks through building a property management company from the ground up, turning down growth on purpose, and learning when to step back so others can lead better than he ever could. He also opens up about loss, responsibility, and becoming the person his family could rely on during life's hardest moments, at work and at home. This conversation explores what it means to carry ambition, grief, and care for others at the same time, and still keep moving forward.
I didn't have the privilege of getting to work on site previously, so I didn't have that experience when I came into the business. There's better people with better experience to have better mentorship for people on site to work from, to get help and knowledge from than myself. It was certainly more of just like, I just want to be in the know. The hardest thing to do is it's easy to immediately think things around you are the problem, but you have to really sit down and think like, am I the right person to oversee this task?
What do you think the underlying reason maybe for you that makes it hard? Because in some ways you're kind of admitting that you can't do something or you're not the best person to do it. What is that underlying feeling?
I think it's
Property managers lose hours chasing rent, while delinquency and filing costs add up to massive losses. The financial impact? Millions in unpaid rent sold to collections agencies that recover just 20 to 30%, while taking a huge cut. Now, the Kelsey you trust for leasing helps you recover more rent in-house, reducing reliance on agencies and maximizing revenue. With Collections AI, Kelsey automates rent and move-out collections, from the first missed payment to move-out, while ensuring compliance across jurisdictions. Easily train and set up Kelsey on your company's collections process, including CARES and state-regulated workflows. She doesn't just set reminders. Kelsey answers resident questions, tracks promise to pay dates, and follows up persistently to keep payments on track. Need oversight? Corporate teams can monitor collections in real time with Zuma's dashboard, while site teams use the Chrome Assistant to track payments and even respond as Kelsey when needed. Kelsey also evaluates resident risk with AI, providing instant insights to help you make smarter renewal decisions. The impact? Doubles collections velocity, reduces filings, cuts site team workload by 85%. Stop leaving rent revenue on the table. Let Zuma's Collections AI handle the heavy lifting while you focus on what matters. Get started today.
I came here in high school and then left for college, came back. So ended up in Dallas actually to play golf originally. So grew up in West Texas in Lubbock. And then in high school, got an offer to go to a golf academy here in DFW. And so got like a scholarship to do that. So you go to public school during the day and then you play on your golf team, but you also like train with these specific coaches and things like that. So that's how I ended up in Dallas.
What got you into golf? My cousin is a professional golf player. His name is Julian Suri. He at one point he was like I think 60th in the world, and now he's fallen down a little bit. But he's a professional golfer, which is really cool. How did you get into golf?
So Lubbock was not like the biggest place for golf. A lot of courses, but it's super windy and dry. But I played all the sports growing up. So my mom was like a model and a pageant queen growing up. So she had my brother and I on like tap dance, jazz, gymnastics, ballet, and then football, baseball, basketball, everything else. And then as I just kept getting older, I was probably the worst at golf, but it was the only sport I liked to practice. All the others, I wanted to just go to games and tournaments. I didn't want to go, run suicides or do the practices. And so that's how it ended up, like kind of about 13 saying, all right, golf's going to be the path. And I was kind of the most natural at it, but I just not Just hadn't put a ton of effort or time into it at that point, but I guess people saw that there was some potential there. And so we ended up moving to Dallas when I was 15 and going to, it's called Performax Golf Academy at Castle Hills. It's not there any longer, but it was a really cool experience to do that, be around a lot of really talented players and a ton of people that practiced out there that weren't even a part of the academy that ended up playing on tour and various things. I realized later on I didn't have the work ethic to have that level of success. Yeah.
You still moved, so you moved, remind me where you moved from?
Lubbock, out in West Texas.
From Lubbock to
Carrollton, actually.
Carrollton. Okay. And I'm not familiar, how far is that?
It's like 25 minutes
okay.
suburbs outside of Dallas.
Oh, okay. So
yeah. Like when I would come to Dallas as a kid to play a baseball tournament, like you wouldn't have the internet then. I'm 40 now. I thought it was like Manhattan. You see like, what was probably 5 or 6 buildings downtown Dallas at that time.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like everything. Like my dream was like, I've got to live in Dallas. And there's actually a neighborhood in Dallas called West Village. And at the time it had like a driving range and you would hit and it looked like you were hitting into like big high rise buildings. And I remember just always telling my dad, I gotta live out here. And ironically in my early 30s, they built a high rise on that golf range. And I ended up living there for like 4 years. So it's kind of like funny to come full circle, ending up living in this neighborhood that as like a 10-year-old, I would tell my parents like, I really want to live here. Like this is the coolest place ever. And then to kind of see it happen. And then as you get older, you start traveling and you realize like, all right, maybe Dallas isn't Manhattan, but it felt like it as a 10-year-old kid. Yeah.
Well, comparing it to.
Yeah, absolutely. Compared to what your experiences were.
Yeah. So you still took golf fairly seriously then if you moved out there and you went to it's called academy. You went to academy.
Yeah, I did. I think what it was, I was naturally good. I would go spend 6, 8, 10 hours a day, every day out there, but I wasn't as calculated with my practice. I could see as you get older, like my buddies, as we would get older, start drinking, we'd go out, they would go home, they'd be there at 7 a.m. with the trainer, then practice. I'd be rolling up at 2 p.m. and they're leaving to go home for the day and I'm just getting started type of thing. Like I enjoyed all the social and all the other aspects of life a lot more than they found a good balance and I did not.
Okay.
So golf was a byproduct of like, what became college and social life and all of that is, just something I needed to do to be there. But, loved all the other aspects of college a lot more.
What did your parents think of you kind of pursuing golf and taking it seriously?
Yeah, they loved it. Really, I was best at like baseball and basketball and football. But like they're just, my dad would always say, we're going to support you in whatever we can do. I grew up very, very middle class. They worked, tons to kind of provide what we did get. But they'd say, well, we're going to support you with whatever you want, your dreams. But, if you want to play professional sports, like golf might be the one because like he'd say, I'm 5'6", your mother's 5'3", like the chances of you in the NBA are not great. We'll support you if that's the way you want to go. I remember having this conversation in a gymnasium. I'd just gotten dunked on by another 12-year-old. I could barely touch the bottom of like the net. And some 12-year-olds dunking over the top of me. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to make it in basketball. So golf kind of just became this thing. And as I've grown up, it was really cool. All these sectors of life like really roll back to golf because I had dyslexia in school. And so it was fascinating because it was hard to figure out how to navigate certain things and reading comprehension. So I'll never forget, like being 18, they sit you in this room in high school and they bring someone in from like the district to say like, here's your options post-college. And not to like talk down to any other industries that they were promoting at the time, but it was just like, I thought I had so much more potential, and they're saying like, oh, the military, these different things. And I thought, at the time at 18, like, I'm going to go to college. Like I'm going to do these things. And they're trying to tell me not to, because I'm just not made for college. And I'll never forget that lady's face to this day. Like she was a huge motivating factor of me saying like, I will prove you 100% wrong. And so every year I think about her when it's time to pay taxes or anything like, that, this was a school teacher lady, like basically telling 18-year-old kids, like, you probably don't have what it takes to go to the next level of
Do you
school.
remember that moment?
100%. And my mom actually was a behavioral specialist in the same school district. And so afterwards, like she went to the lady and was like, this is not okay. Because a lot of kids, my brother would be one of those. He did not love like people telling him he couldn't do something. He would just say, you're right, and move on. Where I'm kind of the opposite. Like, you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to prove to you that I can do it.
Where do you think that came from?
Yeah, I think just my parents were just super hardworking and worked for everything that they had. Like, I remember my grandmother I still have her, I have it framed in my office at home. It's her buying her first house. It was like $7,000. And it was like the deed to the house. And she made like $5 an hour working at the hospital, doing like monitoring the computers or monitoring like the TV monitors back in the day where you would kind of watch each patient. And that was her job. And she would make like $5, $3 an hour, $8 an hour. And she paid for me to go to private school in 8th grade out of that money. Like, she saved everything and just created a work ethic. And my parents always just told me, like, you can be anything you want to be. And so I think it was just kind of that upbringing of them saying, like, you got to work hard. You have to care about other people, but you have to work hard. You've got to put in the time, and nobody can tell you can't do something. But them always supporting me, I think, is really what has kind of led to all these key moments in my life that kind of made big, impactful moments, always reverting back to that.
So you felt, in some ways, like unconditional love from your parents, you'd say, growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think both my parents loved in a very different way. My dad was very much like, we'll figure out how to financially get this done for you to participate in whatever it was. And that was his way of showing love. And then my mom's was more like centered around, and not that my dad's wasn't, but like around like ethics and morals and loyalty and Christianity, and trying to really instill like to be good men growing up. And if sports worked out or any of this worked out, great. But like, she would rather me have no money and a happy marriage and kids that are healthy and a beautiful life going to church every Sunday than ever having a dollar to my name. So if you could have any of those things and have a good career, like, it was just icing on top, right? So that was kind of her, the two different sides of things. My dad was very entrepreneurial, ran car dealerships for a long time, and then they went bankrupt. And so he was always fearful of me, especially when I came to Valiant, to kind of branch out into more of an entrepreneurial space, because he was successful, then completely unsuccessful as times changed in the late 90s. And
when did he go through the bankruptcy?
In the late 90s.
And what happened?
Yeah, so I think, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think just the car business started to not go as well. People had more access to like prices. There were more dealerships. The big names were coming into town, cutting bigger deals. He was more on the used car side at that point. And so he kind of had to reinvent himself when we moved to Dallas. And I don't know if you remember, some people will, like, going to school and people selling candy for fundraisers, like Hershey's. You get these boxes of like fundraisers, and you'd sell Twizzlers for like $2, and all the money would go back to like your sports team or whatever for the school. It's big fundraisers that used to happen in the 90s and early 2000s. And that was kind of what my dad became. He was the national rep for Hershey's chocolate, selling all of the boxes to the school programs to, buy uniforms or whatever it would be. So he kind of had to reinvent himself. And so that was kind of what I thought about when I left, being more in a stable career prior to Valiant, to then kind of jump over to something with a guy I knew that was a friend of mine that had a small business that wanted to grow it from a mom and pop organization to something a lot bigger. And there was a lot of concern of like, my parents were like, is it stable? Is this going to work out? Like, you got a really good thing. Like, you golf 3 days a week with customers. Like, how hard is your life? And it was like, I always knew I wanted more. I always wanted to build something again and just really have that side of it. And so that's kind of how like things just kind of each changed in life, but it all kind of came back to like those core fundamentals in my life.
And what is the sense of building something and being a part of something small and making it big feel like? Why did you, what excited you about that?
Yeah, I think, so what's interesting about golf is it's the only sport that's very individual and very team oriented through high school and college. Like, you could win as an individual, but your team could get last place. So how do you handle that emotionally? Your team could win and you could play horribly, and how do you handle that? And building the team camaraderie with one another is something I love. And I talked to a lot of ex-athletes that struggle from coming from, now I was a golfer, but I talked to a lot of friends that are like, Division 1, played football at UT, or these places that had 100,000 people watching them. Like, to walk out on a field like that, be insane to feel that. And then all of a sudden they're in a cube, a few years later, trying to figure out their life. And it's just a very different, but I think it's the closest thing you can get to sports as a grown up, where you're building a team and you're watching people grow. I think that's what's been a ton of fun now as we have built levels below our executive team, where my executive team members and I sit, to watch the team develop and grow and see them go off and start to blossom into, moving up the ladder inside of our organization. Is just something that it just really creates a lot of fire inside of me to build the business like that.
And so when you first joined and when it was first getting started, how big was the?
We had 2,400 units, all in just Dallas, Fort Worth. And with the plan of, hey, if we can get to 10,000 units, that'd be great. And let's see where we can go.
And why 10,000? Just arbitrarily?
It's just a number.
Once I get to 10,000.
Once we get to 10,000, we'll make it, and then we'll try to go for 15, or maybe someday we'll get to 30,000 units. And we would look at the NMHC top 50 list, and we'd be like, God, imagine getting on this list. And we got on it this past year for the first time, just inside of 40,000 units, which is cool. And I'm proud of it because we did it the right way versus, or not to say it's the right way, but just our way. We've turned down more business than we bring on every year. We try to make sure we work with good groups, that have, good capital, and, safe areas, really focus on the quality of the client and their assets so that it's good for our team. And so by means of that, we've turned down almost 150,000 units over the last 7 years. So we could be, a couple 100,000 if we wanted to be, and we would love that. But what's more important is that we did it with, people that the right way, and that we can develop our team along the way versus just growing to grow and end up losing clients.
So talk to me about the trade-offs of that, because it sounds like, I was listening to a podcast the other day and more on the tech side and startup side, and they were talking about, there's all these AI companies that are going from 0 to 1 million in a month or a couple days or weeks. And the big difference, though, and what people don't pay attention to enough is, yes, the growth rate is important, but the quality of revenue is important, right? You want high quality customers and sticky customers, and you want the business to be high quality rather than just focusing on the top line metric. So I guess tell me, to be in a position where you're turning down that much business takes a lot of guts, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's really times we say, thank you, but we're going to pass, and then be like, God, what do we just do?
So when you say to make sure you want the right units and the right customers and things, what does that mean? Maybe go into detail there.
Yeah, you want to. Property management is not an easy business. It's tough. You're not dealing with just good things every single day. There's challenges and units and residents and in repairs and storms, and in Dallas we've had some crazy freezes for a few years. There's always something happening, and so you want to be able to work with groups that can guide those hurdles with you, and that are along for the ride. And I think you can just kind of feel and sense sometimes that people are quality, because we're not selling, we're selling human capital, right? We're selling people and our service, and we have to interact every single day. We're very much like a marriage with our clients, right? When they're interviewing us, we're interviewing them in a way, right? Because we want to make sure that we're going to be talking to them every single week, if not every day or every other day. So it's not a transactional business as you would see on the brokerage side or in technology, where it's, it's all about getting to a multiple and a top line number to get to an exit. Property management is a service-based business, and you have to have that kind of that heart for it. Or else it's just, if it's all about a top line number, it's a really hard business to be in.
Paint me the picture of the perfect ideal client.
Yeah, someone that understands the ebbs and flows of the business and is well capitalized, So, going through some of these tough times that we've had the last few years, being able to kind of handle the capital needs for the property to be maintained well. And someone that's going to tell us when things aren't right, but at the same time, understand that, it's not linear. This thing is very cyclical and the seasonalities throughout the year. So, just people that have the ability that we can work, closely with. And it doesn't mean you don't get, calls at 9 and 10 o'clock on a regular basis. But I love it. But it's about working with people that you can tell they appreciate you. They respect you. They don't view you as just like a commodity. They see you as like a true partner to them, more than anything, more than all the other things. Is, do they feel like we create value for them, or do they think we're just another one out there? And that's what you want as people, because it is our business. It is personal to us. It's not transactional. We want to be here for a long time. So, you want people that can at least, respect you and appreciate what you're doing. Along the way. And as the industry has grown so much, it's become much more transactional. And what can you do for me now? And if you can't do this for me, at this moment, then it's not right. We're not the right fit. And, we really love the people that can really appreciate, growing a great partnership together.
Tell me about, so going from, you said 2,400 units to 40,000 units, can you break down the different stages of each, level up and what that looks like?
Yeah, I think every time it's like you're growing and you just, you think you've got the right amount of people, and then you grow more and you're like, oh no, we need more people. And so it's kind of this evolution at 10,000 units and 15 and 20. And there's not really necessarily a specific number that each time things change, but you can just start to see as you're growing, like the team's getting bigger. I think for us, the way I look at it is what I'm not involved in now. Something really cool is like our regional retreat. It used to be all of the department heads and the regionals would go to a retreat for a day or two to do a bunch of training, and everyone sat at the same table. Today, like there's 40 plus regionals at the retreat, and they're there just with their team for their team side of the bonding inside of our business. And so to then see the pictures start coming through from them at that retreat is always like a shocking moment every year. Even though you talk to them every day, you see them, but something about seeing them all collectively from across the country together, and you're like, wow, this is pretty bizarre. Like, this is incredible to see it and see how happy they are. I think that's what you can start to see as we kind of get into different growth patterns of getting to do different things, is how we would kind of see the different milestones.
Yeah. There's this book that I read maybe 7 years ago, but it really stuck with me. It's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Yeah.
And the premise is that especially when you're building a business, every stage of the company is different, right? And the skills that you use to get to the current stage you're in may not be the same subset of skills that you need to get you to the next stage. So for example, when you're first starting a tech company, at least, and it's you and your co-founder, you're 50% of the company in every way: resources, equity, time, all of that stuff. So what you're doing is really just focus on building the product and finding customers. And usually that's what matters mostly. But as you grow, you go from being kind of an individual contributor to now figuring out how you can get leverage in your business, as you talked about, hiring the right people. So we're kind of at the stage where you want to install really strong functional leaders to own functions of the business, because you have to recognize that sometimes you can be the rate limiting step in growth for the company if you continue to own a function, right? So I guess if you if you parallel that to building a property management company, expanding, how have you seen your job change over the different stages, and what started as kind of the main focuses, and how did that change?
Yeah, early on, it was just kind of all hands on deck, whether it be interviewing regional managers for properties, being out on site on a regular basis, constantly checking in with the teams, overseeing the marketing department, or being in the marketing department, our transitions teams, like all these various departments. And as we grow, we've been able to create, heads of those departments that are far more experienced and are the right talent to be in those. versus, the same people, kind of like you said in that book, is, if you stay ahead of these things when there's way better talent to do that, you're not going to keep growing externally with customers and clients, or, internally with your team, because they're going to feel like they're, pigeonholed into a role. So being able to kind of start saying, hey, now I will no longer be over this department or that department. People are now, have their own departments. And today I oversee our client services and business development side of our business, along with just being on the executive team with my counterparts there. And so that's been really cool to see what was the president of our organization just sitting there and myself trying to, build websites, 10 years ago, to where we are today with, over almost 900 team members and 130 or 40 inside of the corporate office, is really cool to kind of see how that's grown.
What has been some of the lowest points in the journey? Because I imagine to get there, I mean, that's tremendous. That's 20x growth over the last few years. What has been the most painful part?
Yeah, I think the biggest pain was, getting through COVID was huge, as people will say, because our industry had to 100% change everything we do, from human to human interaction, the way you collect rent, the way you give tours of property. So it was kind of reinventing everything we had to do. So I think certainly that was not necessarily a low, but it was a pause of like, hey, growth is great, but we can't grow right now. We have to figure out how to reinvent a number of the things we do. So I think that, was kind of one of those things. And then I think along the way is just probably where having to like look at yourself and reflect on, am I the right person for this role, is kind of an internal low, where you're saying, okay, I'm really good over here. I don't want to let go of this, but I may not be the best person. And you have to really look at yourself and say, like, I'm not, I'm not the best person. I'm a great, X, Y, or Z. So I need to be there and focus my attention there versus trying to just be in the mix, to stay in the mix. It's something you're not.
Did you find that hard to do?
Yeah, I think early on, it was, about 5 or 6 years ago, as we were growing, it was more like starting to let go of certain things that, frankly, I didn't have the privilege of getting to work on site previously. So I didn't have that experience when I came into the business. And so, me helping out with a number of on-site tasks there's better people with better experience, to have better mentorship for people on site to work from, to get, help and knowledge from than myself. So it was certainly more of just like, I just want to be in the know. And then it took a little bit of time to even just say like, I don't even need to be in the know now, and I'm comfortable with that. And that took some time to get there, and we got there a handful of years ago, and that was a great feeling too. But I'd say that's probably the biggest lows of just like having to self-reflect and say, we got 24 hours in a day. What are we going to do? Like, how are we going to get there? And we were accustomed to working, 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day, every day for years. And I now got married about a year and a half ago and have a little one on the way. And so as part of this, it's always been like, all right, well, we're going to have to be ready to, not work 14, 15 hours a day. Maybe it's only 12 when the family comes, things like that. So, but those were some of those kind of low periods of just trying to have to do self-reflection upon yourself, which is probably the hardest thing to do. Is it's easy to immediately think things around you are the problem, but you have to really sit down and think like, am I the right person to oversee this task? And so that would probably be it.
So what do you think is the, because I'm very curious about this point specifically, because I've seen that myself in my own business. And, I remember going through the same thing. What do you think the underlying reason maybe for you is that makes it hard? Is it, you don't feel, because basically admitting that you can't, in some ways you're kind of admitting that you can't do something, or you're not the best person to do it. What is that underlying feeling?
Yeah, I think it's the fear of, do the people around you do they care as much, right? Like, it's an unhealthy care, right? Like when you're building something, your business, like you probably have an unhealthy relationship with it at times. Like it is what matters. And you'll push whatever aside to make sure that it continues to move forward. So I think as you start to think about letting things go, it's just like, will people care as much, right? And the truth is, maybe they don't even have to, because they're really good at what they do, and they can do that in 20 minutes that it takes you 2 hours to do it, or their sole job could be focusing on a certain function that you're trying to figure out how to do at midnight. Things like that, like building a CRM, something like that, like trying to do that on my own versus, hiring someone to do it. Like that makes no sense. But it was just something like, well, we need to make sure we do it right and we use it right. So I think it's come from like that place of just, wanting to make sure it goes well. Not that you don't trust the other people. It's just knowing that, like, the fear of if they don't have the same dedication that you have. And we're very fortunate. We've hired and brought an incredible team in. I'm very lucky. Every week we meet with our executive team together, and I'm just in awe of like how great of a team we have from very different walks of life, all different things that each one are really, really talented at. And it makes a great group to be. And that just starts at the top, and then it disseminates down to our team. Many of our team members have been with us for 5, 6, 8, 9 years. We have a couple on the regional side that have been with the company since it started 30 years ago. So it's been really cool to just see everyone develop and all work together. And, we always say it's like your family is at home and you got a family at the office too, because you spend so much time together. So it's been really awesome to have such a great team to be around.
And going back to that, the point of letting go, because one of the things we realize internally is even when you're kind of evolving and you're starting to delegate more, part of you doesn't want to do that because in some ways it's also admitting that maybe you're not needed as much, right? Maybe you're not, you're not needed to run that. Did you feel any of that a little bit?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great point. I think there is like that part of well, if you don't need this, then what do you need me for?
Yeah,
right?
it kind of is like admitting to yourself, oh, it's because you want to be needed. Like people want to be needed because you want to be valuable.
Right, absolutely. So I think there's a little bit of that too, of just saying, well, if I don't need it here, like, is there enough, in the next bucket of needs, which there always is, especially in our business. There's always a million different things going on at any given day. And so, now we're in a spot where we're all really in the roles that we belong in. The team is super talented around us. Feel trust in everyone and what they do. I actually thought you get on like an executive team and that's when you coast. Like I thought like in the early 20s and the teens, like you're like, I'm just going to be an executive. And then you sit in this cool office with a lot of wood and it's just cool and you hang. And it is the furthest thing from the truth. Like half of our executive team is the first people in the building. The other half is the last people in the out of the building in the evening. We're constantly talking at night and on the weekends, and we love it. Like we love being a part of it. We love building the business and the machine. And so it is way more work and effort than what I thought is like a 20-year-old saying like, I'm going to be a CEO or an executive of a company, and then I'll just kind of get to hang. And it's the furthest from the truth. Some of our team has come from on site and worked up into office jobs inside of our corporate office. And they're like, man, we thought y'all just kind of hung out. And it's just the furthest thing. We're like, yeah, I mean, we try to say like we do work. And they're like, yeah, y'all work a lot. So I think that's been kind of fun to see, an eye-opening for people to kind of see, what actually does take place inside the office.
But I think that's a sign of a well-run business, right? If the executive team is in the details and working more than the rest of the team, I think that's the sign that you guys all really care and you're really investing a lot into the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we only have 25 or 30 clients by design. We want to put a lot of time and energy into those folks and make sure that they always know like that we're still involved. We're very in it, and technology helps with that and a number of things that we do. But yeah, we just never wanted to outgrow our ability to have an intimate conversation with our clients and what we call them as our partners, because that they are why we get to be here and then why we get to have such great team members and why we get to have such great residents and everything along the way.
So talk to me about what client services actually means
Yeah.
and entails, and just walk me through the function.
Yeah, so we are kind of an offshoot of, if you think about groups that are buying properties, they have an acquisitions team. So they're hunting deals that are on market or off market. They're underwriting them to see, does this hit their investment, parameters that they need for their investors to get the returns they need. They kind of hit, see it makes sense in their eyes. Now they want to send it over to their management partner to see, hey, can you take a look at this, the income, the expenses, what are we seeing in the market? Does this add up to what they're looking at? So a lot of what we're doing is underwriting deals alongside of our clients and potential clients to show them how we would operate a property. Past that, it's keeping up with what's going on in the market, what's on the market for sale, any deals that may be trading off market without a broker involved that we could, notify our clients about. That we were talking about a little bit earlier, living in LA and places they may not have their pulse, on the DFW or Houston or Austin or, whatever market, the same way we do by being local to it. So being able to kind of spend a lot of time talking through the market with them, and then, doing their budgets for the first year they come on, getting our operations team ready to go and prepared for when the property closes and now our client now owns it, what happens then, getting everything ready to go for them on that side, and then building new relationships, trying to bring in new clients that we think are a good fit for our organization and can help us, as we want to grow and grow methodically. So we're outsourcing and trying to build relationships within the marketplace with a lot of the industry folks that have good relationships that can be good referral sources, and as well as kind of your old school, just picking up the phone and giving people a call.
Is that working?
Yeah, it's still a thing. Yeah, it's still a thing. I will say I think it's back more than ever because people are overwhelmed with so many emails right now. Yeah. So yeah, it's certainly there, but that is the kind of the crux of what client services is. And just trying to look at like the client life cycle and the experience that they have, within the organization.
So earlier in our conversation, you said something interesting that I want to ask you about. You said you feel like maybe, when you heard that from your teacher, you were kind of driven to like prove her wrong, but you mentioned that your brother, you feel like wouldn't have said the same thing. Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know why. He was just very different. He and I were very similar personality. People would say that knew us both, kind of like fun, happy-go-lucky, very caring. But for whatever reason, he kind of was a little bit different in that light. And I don't know. We were 6 years apart, or 5.5. And so it was kind of a critical time, I think, where I was now running off to college. He's getting into like 8th and 9th grade. And so kind of like I was too cool. I was trying to be in college. He's, playing football in high school and not, I'm not coming back like a lot of kids because I'm, traveling for golf. So he and I didn't get to really get as close until his late teens, early 20s and stuff, when I was back from school and so forth. Because at that point, like, you didn't have great cell phones. This is like the early 2000s. So you had like Snake on your cell phone.
Oh,
or
I
Nokia.
love Snake.
Like you had to, was it like T9 to text? It was like 10 cents or 20 cents a text. So, it's like a very different time of connectivity. And so I think, we just were kind of different in that regard. And I don't really know why.
And your parents probably raised, because 6 years is you said 5.5, 6,
Yeah.
and you're the older brother. Mm-hmm. So I wonder how your parents' parenting styles might have changed.
Yeah. I think certainly there was a change. And I do think too, we were on the road so much with me and my golf too. Like he was a byproduct of coming along, and he got into golf and he was very good at it too. But he just didn't have the same, desire to kind of keep playing the way I did. And then unfortunately he got hurt and had a couple, like ended up getting on like hydrocodone and getting, hooked on that. And so it became an evolution of like his 20s of trying to get clean off of like pills and hydrocodone. And so that was kind of what led, as we're talking about the foundation that we were working through with, for kids with, addiction, for prescription addiction, and depression and teens and young adults, was something that we started working on years ago. because
This is the
you could
Chase
see
Parks
that.
Foundation.
Yeah, yeah. And so we took a pause on it when we said, hey, we're going to grow Valiant. When my mom retires, we're going to put a lot more focus back into the foundation. And we used to host like some golf tournaments to raise money for organizations and do some things like that. And then we kind of put a pause as Valiant started to grow and put the emphasis there, so that then later we would have the resources and a lot of working knowledge of how to, run businesses of nonprofits and things like that too. So it's something that we're starting to fire back up right now as my mom is starting to retire from her job. But he passed away about 10 years ago now, and it was fentanyl. Like, he ended up with some hydrocodone that were laced with fentanyl, and so he ended up passing away from that. And so that was obviously a very tragic thing for my family to go through. But he got hooked on these, and it was and it was another big turning point in my life of saying, we were very middle class, so we were in this spot where the government doesn't want to help you. You don't have the money to go send off to like these, clinics, these facilities. And so he would go to like the local ones in Dallas, and they would kick him out, and they'd go for a day or two, and they'd be like, hey, you don't have a real problem. Like, you need to leave. We need someone that's like got a heroin issue or something, because that was, 10, 12 years ago or 15 years ago. When he was going through it, and it was like prescription addiction wasn't real. Like, it wasn't in the media. It was perceived as like not that real of an addiction at the time, or not enough emphasis was being put on how real it was. Today, the fentanyl prescription addiction, totally different ball game, right? It's all over the place today. But at that time it wasn't. So they would even kick him out of the facility and say, like, we have people waiting that have like heroin issues and other things, and they need help. You don't. And so they would, like, I remember one time him calling me saying, hey, I'm like across the street at this Sonic. I got, they removed me because they told me like I don't need to be here. And so it was some of those moments of me saying, like, I need to make sure that I can always support my family in whatever we do. Like, we need to have enough money that nothing ever matters. And so I've always been money motivated, but that just kind of, exemplified my desire to always be able to take care of like my parents, my grandparents, my brother. Like, that was just something that was always a huge importance to me, because we couldn't get him into the right places at the time, and unfortunately he passed away, and I think, at the end of the day, he's in peace now, and I think that's a good thing, because it was a pretty rough up and down of just two different people, and it was tough for people to experience. And even now, to this day, my mom, I'll hear something new that I didn't know about from him, where she wears his, he went to AA, and she wears his necklace or his coin that he got in AA. I didn't even know this till last week. She wears it every day because he would keep it in his pocket and hold it every night to try to like stay clean for just 24 more hours. And so just hearing all that, it just motivates me to be great at what I can be great at, so that then I can help other people around me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. I'm really sorry to hear about your brother.
Yeah, no, appreciate it.
I mean, you said you're 40 now?
Yeah, 40 now. Yeah.
So 10 years ago, and then, I can't imagine that, because I'm 30.
Yeah.
So how did you even process that?
Yeah, I think that as the big brother, you're always in like survival and taking care of mode. Like, I was so focused on, I was coming back from a wedding in Cabo. I'd land, and my mother is frantic and can't tell me, even don't speak on the phone. So actually, she finally told me, I'm trying to get through customs, and I just cut the line and said, like, my brother passed away, I've got to go. And they were like, they were going to arrest me. And I was like, I don't care, do what you ever need to do. And the guy was like, if you're lying about this, I hope bad things happen to you. Go on through. And they let me through, and I got outside, and it was obviously real. But I think I just was in such a survival mode of needing to take care of my parents that it took me, a long time to kind of process it, of always seeing like, hey, what could I have done differently? How could I have, done different things? But at some level too, I've always, after the first couple of years, had a lot of peace of saying like, he had a really bad addiction problem, and it always would creep back up. There would always be some sort of thing that would occur to make it kind of lapse again. And as bad as it sounds, like, I feel like he's at such peace now from just some demons that he had that came in and to his life. And And I think that like that's kind of what gave me peace, is knowing that like he's able to rest now versus fighting, every single day. And it's really cool to see so many different people that have been able to beat addiction and continue to fight through their addictions. And he was doing a great job, to be honest. But he ended up getting some pills after he ran out from some pains, and they were not the right ones, and so ended up passing away from it. So I think, I've always just been that person. My dad passed away years ago from, I think he actually had COVID about a month before COVID came out. He had a liver transplant, and the transplant didn't go well. And then ultimately it ended up being, like a quick passing away about a month later. And then
A month after COVID.
about a month, about 2 weeks before they launched or said there's COVID, but he had a liver transplant about 45 days, or about 75 days before that, and was having a lot of conflicts with it. So was in and out of the hospital every week. And we were just kind of living in and out of the hospital together. And I'd go to the office and then come back at night and back and forth. And the company was great at that time. But yeah, it was kind of like another one of those moments of like, I'm here just to take care of everyone. And I've kind of always been that with my family, just like the big brother to everybody that needs to kind of help be the support function. And for whatever reason, I kind of thrive in that mode. And that's how I operate the best.
Do you feel like that comes at the cost of taking care of yourself and like putting yourself last if you're constantly focused on everybody else?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly, between family, business, all those things, and certainly, would find a way to not take care of myself at times, for sure. Now being married to my beautiful wife, and getting ready to have a baby girl, it's like, all right, we got to really make sure that, we're taking care of them and we're taking care of myself too. So I think a lot has kind of come full circle for me the last few years, especially. I think COVID was a very tragic time, but I think it was a great time of reflection for me personally, and a time where I was able to see that, I need to make sure my priorities are lined out appropriately, and ultimately it was like, it's time to grow up a little bit. Like, you've grown up in business, you've grown up everywhere else. It's time to grow up in your social life and settle down and raise a family, and yeah, they're very proud to be in that space in life. And I tell people, like, I got married at 38. I wouldn't change it for the world, but at the same time, you kind of sometimes like, it would be cool to have a little bit older of a kid right now than being like, I'm going to be a 50-year-old dad hanging out at the elementary school. So I don't know how many more 50-year-olds are going to be hanging out at the elementary school with me at that time.
Your positivity, though, through all this, and thanks for sharing all this, is like really inspiring. I mean, this is a lot. If I just think about the last 10 years of your life, you've gone through 2 major losses plus a massive transformation in a business, which I feel is like very, genuinely very admirable. And it's hard, but while all this is happening, you seem to be really positive and optimistic. Is that how you've always been?
Yeah, I think so, because I just felt that, we get one life. I could certainly eat more salads and less cheeseburgers, that's for sure. That would help. But I've always just kind of felt like I want to be a people pleaser, and I want to make everybody happy around me. I want people to have a great day. I never want people to have a bad day off an experience with me. And I think I've just kind of always been very happy-go-lucky. My parents were that way, even through a lot of hard times. They worked very, very hard, but necessarily didn't always have the highest paying jobs. My mom was a teacher and a behavioral specialist with the school district. And so, tons of hours, but never like, the greatest of pay. So I think I learned all that from them, but they would just still be positive about, all the great things that we do have. And so I think just that part is kind of instilled in me. But I just know, like, certainly too, just some of the experiences I've had is I know life can be way worse, and we can also not be here too. So, life's hard enough as it is, so we need to at least laugh a bit, right, and have some fun. So, because if not, like, life's even harder. especially in property management. It's a tough business. So you got to have some fun with it. Like I try to have fun with different things. I even try to talk my wife into like, hey, give me a word for the podcast and I'm going to see how many times I can use it. And she refused to do it. She's like, oh my gosh, you're going to sound terrible. But I'm like, you always got to have fun. Like things need to be fun and you got to enjoy it or let's just not do it.
Yeah,
So I've
I
always been that
totally
way.
agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Sometimes it's hard though, when you're going through all this shit and you're dealing with all this and your internal state is negative. But at the end of the day, the good thing is, my belief is that you you might not be able to control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond
Absolutely.
and how
I
you.
agree. And the people around you, I think, are critical. Like our organization has been great. I've got close groups of friends from, the past 10 years, some from quite a few from high school still, like a core group of friends. And most, I would say, more successful or have different things. And it was always great to have people around me that I always felt were more successful, that were more intelligent than me. So it was something I was always striving for. And to be around people that were better than me, because if I could be, the lowest on the totem pole amongst my group of friends, then that was a good place because then I had something to work towards. And it wasn't something I necessarily was searching for, but as I kind of looked at it, it was like, especially coming up around golf, it's been, historically kind of this like, rich man game, right? And growing up, not at a country club, not around these things, like I strived for that. I wanted that. Like that was like something that was so important to me, or to get that, be able to have these things. And so being around people that had them, it just helped me stay motivated. And being around them also too, they were all very positive and very supportive. I feel very lucky and blessed to have, 20 different, best friends. I've been in 26 weddings as a groomsman or an officiant. Only been the groom once, and but was in so many weddings, and I think it's just like because I had such a great group of friends and a great support system, and that's kind of what's kept all the positive energy too.
Tell me about your inner monologue of you. What's going on with you about to become a dad? What are you thinking?
Besides panic, just sheer panic of, I keep having to think there's been a lot of people that have survived having kids, but I've started watching YouTubes and I'll get about 2 minutes in and I panic and I just say, you know what, tomorrow's going to be a better day to watch these, learning videos. I'm incredibly excited. I think it's going to be an exciting time, but all my friends seem to have this kind of like, we're so excited for you to be a dad. Ha ha ha. They have this chuckle, like a not good chuckle, right? Like they are ready for me to have all these experiences that they've had and have overcome for years, right? So I think nervous, but very excited about where we are in the process. And I just think that it's going to be exciting, but it is going to be a learning time. And the biggest thing I keep trying to tell myself is, someone mentioned this the other day, you're going to get in good routines throughout the process and be like, all right, we got this. And then it's going to change because, the kid's going to get a little bit older and the routine's going to change and you're going to panic and go, I can't do this again. And then you'll find that routine and get, smooth it out. And then it'll just keep always evolving. So I think just trying to tell myself, like, it's going to be okay. We're going to do this. And it's going to be a ton of fun and we're going to learn a lot along the way. And fortunately, we have YouTube and we have resources and things that they didn't have. I'll tell my mom things that, we need to get or what's going on. She's like, I don't even know what that is, because none of this stuff existed back in the day. You got strollers that are car seats that, weren't even around, I think 5 or 6 years ago, people were saying they didn't even have that thing. So I think, just being able to get all the resources and have what we need is a key piece of it. But yeah, I certainly think about panic and excitement all rolled into one and trying to figure out like, what kind of dad am I going to be? Is it the dad that, really tries to force her into golf? Or is it like, pretend it's not that cool so that maybe she gets in? My dream is for her to become, to play golf and want to play golf with me. Like that is like my dream. So I'm always like asking friends, like, so I notice your child's getting, kind of into golf. Like, how's that process? And everyone's is totally different.
So what conclusions have come to mind about what kind of dad you want to be?
Yeah, I think just very much their dad. I will say, my dad, he never missed like a sports event, a golf tournament. Golf tournaments are tough because they're like in the middle of the work week. So it's interesting to now to be running a business and see people need to leave for their kids' events and things, and to think back to like, my dad having to use all of his vacation time, which made no sense to me then, to be at my golf tournaments and, whatever it took to get there, or to baseball trips and, get on an airplane to fly somewhere to go play a basketball tournament, at 10 years old, and, like just kind of things like that, that kind of as you grow up, you're like, that's pretty bizarre that that's such a thing. But, I know I want to be a dad that's just really available and, really like hopefully build a relationship that's like very open, like talk about anything. That was cool with my parents. They were always the parents that knew way more about every one of my friends' like social lives and what was really going on than a lot of other people's parents, just because they were so down to earth about, like what the world was and what was going on in it. And my parents' rule number one was like, you don't lie. Like you tell the truth about what you were doing and you don't lie about it. If you lie, everything goes away. You can recover from what you've done, but if you lie about it, we're gonna have a problem.
So you ended up being fairly open with them growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. And still to this day. So with my mom. And so I think that's it. I want to be able to, have kids that they can feel open. I realized I thought I'd always be like a cool parent and in the scene, and I'm still learning what like 6'7" means now. And I'm like out of the game of like, what are the cool slang words now? Is it 6'7"? 7, 8, whatever that
I
thing
don't know
is.
what that is.
Oh, I don't know. It's
I'm
some
out of
new
the game,
thing.
I guess, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's like all these cool words now. And I see my friend, and I said dope the other day, and like my best friend, his daughter's like 10, and she looked at me like I was like the most uncool person she'd ever met. And I'm like, dope. She's like, that's not dope. So it's just funny to see how words change. And I'm like, man, maybe I'm not as in the scene. Like I'm not going to be as hip as I thought I was going to be. So I've got some learning to do. But yeah, just very open, attentive, available, be at all the events, whether it's something I'm passionate about or not, got to be there and show support.
And what's your wife's philosophy? Is she similar?
Yeah, she's very similar. I'm very much the social engagement part of the family, and she's very much like, we need good education. It's all about, learning school. And I'm like, well, AI is going to take all of it. We're probably not even going to have school. But yeah, she's very much on the same page of like, being very supportive, very open to what it's a girl, what she's going to be doing. And she had a sister, so I think it's going to be a little bit more, I think, easier for her because she grew up in a house with just her parents and another sister, where I had, a brother. So I've never, lived with a girl until 2 years ago. So, I'm still learning, the dynamics of, introducing a little girl into the house. How do you raise a daughter versus, raising a boy? And how does that change, things? And so she's excited. It was a big process to get there. And so, but she's super excited for every moment. And I can see her day by day, like kind of starting to, people talk about like this like glow that women have when they're pregnant. And that didn't make any sense to me. And now I like see it as your wife is like pregnant and she's got this child, and it's easy to go off to work and forget about during the day because you're not carrying the kid. And then you'll all of a sudden she'll send a text and be like, she's moving a lot today. And it's just this weird feeling that comes over you that I'm starting to feel now, that people would say like, just wait. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Now I understand it. Like she's not even here yet, but you're starting to hear her move, or you go to the doctor for the first time and you hear like this heartbeat and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like a person in there. And then we're going to raise and be responsible for. So yeah, now she has this beautiful glow and excitement, and just the research. I mean, the amount of research she has done on every, item and people she's asked for input from. Like, I'm pretty sure she could, write a pretty intense, book, and we don't even have a kid yet.
How has that relationship changed you with your wife?
I think right now it's just the shift of, I would say, like, maybe the priorities or the conversations. It's not like, hey, what all trips are we going to do next year, or what's going on here or there. It's like, hey, what are we going to do a nursery? Are we going to, what colors are these things going to be? I got back from a client trip the other day in Las Vegas, and she picked me up from the airport, and we went straight to Pottery Barn Kids. There's no difference in the world than being in Las Vegas to then getting home and going to Pottery Barn Kids and being walked around by the sales rep, who was fantastic. I mean, she's like, oh, you got to have this and that and this. And you're going, and they're like, which one do you like? And I'm just like, which one's cheaper? So it's a whole game of that, of just a lot of conversation on getting ready for the kid, and still making sure that we keep a lot of time and attention on us and spending time together too. So she's been very great about the amount of work that it takes to be a Valiant in what we do, and knows how important it is to me. And she knows that golf is still very important in my life. And so she gives me she lets me have the time to kind of refill my tank, as they'll say, by going and golfing or doing social activities. So she's been very supportive along the way through all of that. And so now I'm trying to repay her by being super supportive through the pregnancy and then thereafter. And but it's been a ton of fun to watch our relationship kind of evolve, really the last, I'd say, 60 days. She's 5 months along. And so, this last 60 days is where things have really started to turn, and see kind of, her showing, the conversations are changing, starting to be like, hey, let's pick things up. We're starting to have people send us clothes, and you're like, how would a kid ever wear it? Like, how is a kid this small? So it's kind of fascinating to now look at it like that.
So that's so awesome. My sister had a kid, maybe eight months ago or 9 months ago. And that's been a crazy experience just for me, being an uncle and, seeing this kid. And I still remember the reveal. She did something really cool. It was really weird. We were all together at my parents' house, and she bought these like lottery tickets or something. And she was like, hey, let's just do this lottery thing as a family. Or it was like bingo or lottery or one of those like scratch card things. And we're not the family that goes and buys like lottery tickets and does it together. So it was just a weird thing, but we're like, okay. So she gave everybody one, and we were like scratching it, and like nobody really knew what it was. And then I think somebody had a scratch where it was like, it's a girl, and we were reading it, but I didn't understand what was going on. And suddenly, like, my brother screamed, he's like, it's a girl. And then we realized that it was such a special moment. And I remember, holding, touching my sister's stomach and the baby kicking, and now seeing her, and she's 8 months old and a full human being. It's such an incredible moment, and it's such a special thing in life. And I feel like, I don't have a kid or anything, but I do feel that everybody I've talked to has said that their life has completely changed, because what happens, it sounds like, is you go from thinking that you are the number one priority to now realizing that you're not, and you have something that is your number one priority.
Yeah.
And it's just transformational.
Yeah, I can start seeing it starting to take shape, and I was kind of always like, yeah, all right, I get it. Like, I understand it. Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'll be that way, or, and then that like time comes, and then you see it's starting, she's growing, and you're going to these doctor appointments, and you're starting to feel different. You're like, wow, I didn't know I had these emotions or these feelings of and still people are like, just like, you're not even there. Just wait till you get there. And before I'd be like, all right, yeah, whatever. But now I can, as I start to see the feelings change a little bit, I'm like, okay, I know they're real. Like, I know this is definitely gonna, happen. The day that she's born, that people talk about happening. I truly believe now that is going to be the experience I have as well.
What's next for you after this and Valiant? What's next with Valiant? How do you see the next few years?
Yeah, we just want to continue to grow and do what we've been doing, and keep keep developing our team members and growing ourselves and delivering good results for our clients and our residents. And we really love what we do. And I think, just continuing to build our team, and grow is really what we want to do. And outside of that, it's going to be, raising a family and thinking like, oh, I'm going to go do this weekend. And then be like, I'm going to go golf all weekend. And then be like, oh, well, actually, no, we're not. We got a dance recital or, things like that. So I think that's going to be the big step for me is just kind of, becoming a dad and balancing what what I say is like, my first love, which was Valiant and everything that we do there and we built there. And then just having a great family, and just being a great husband and a great father and figuring out how to make my work-life harmony. I think Jeff Bezos or someone said that one time, right?
Jeff Bezos,
and
yeah.
it's like there's just not a balance in life. There's something that's going to be more the other. And so what I found is how to incorporate it all together. Like where can my wife be involved at client functions or different things or that is what I think is like, how do you create harmony and everything kind of collides? At the end of the day, my friends and many people are in the business. And so my social life and work life, my family life, they all start to collide, within my business. And so I think I love it that way. I love being able to have everything kind of like, being one person off of like our industry or the real estate sector or friends and family and just kind of always being thinking about it, talking about it. My wife will always say it's so easy for guys to get to know each other because y'all need to talk about finance, real estate, sports, like it's just different. And it's like, is that true? And then as I've started to pay attention, I'm like 100%. Like you walk into a room, you start talking to people. It's like, where are you from? What do you do? And you start talking about, something about sports or whatever it is. And so that is true. But I do think the next stage is going to really be just centered around learning how to be, I think I'm becoming a great husband. I think, I'm still learning every day on that side. So continuing to developing as a dad, and then developing as a leader inside the organization, like you're talking about, as times change, like how do your roles change? You become a whole plugger to a process implementer or a process creator to a process implementer and creating structure. So, yeah.
Todd, you're awesome, man. This was really great. I appreciate how candid you were and for sharing all of that.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I appreciate you having me on, man. This is really cool.
Yeah.
So congratulations to the podcast. This is really awesome. It's been really cool to watch a lot of them, and I got a handful more to watch over the next few days too.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you.